you could see it from space. Shown in red, China's air pollution cleared up dramatically during the Great Lockdown. Less traffic and closed factories saw thick smog give way to blue skies. Air travel is responsible for 7% of greenhouse gases. Long-haul flights were down 90%. Could the lockdown be a roadmap to a greener future?
We've seen with the drastic measures that China has taken with regard to corona that emissions have gone down seriously. So people are working from home, manufacturing has slowed down. So these are the kinds of drastic measures that we will have to take for climate change.
No one wants a second lockdown, but we've caught a glimpse of a less polluting world. The challenge is aiming for that while avoiding the damage to our livelihoods and the economy. The blue economy is thriving thanks to the global quarantine. A disruption to industrial fishing has seen some fish stocks explode. That's brought back these guys to places like Portugal. But are they here to stay? When everything returns to normal, the fish could run out again. We'll bring you that report in a moment. First, German Chancellor Angela Merkel says the world's not doing enough to combat climate change. She's pledged to accelerate efforts. Well, Felix Kreuzig is from the Mercator Research Institute on Global Commons and Climate Change. Felix, how do you balance the planet's needs and ours? Does it mean changing our consumption habits?
It may mean that we have learned now from the COVID-19 crisis that actually working from home or flying less, meaning like having holidays at home, can be equally nice. So there are options, and we learned that this is not possible to do so. But obviously what we cannot do that we have like a constant lockdown to be forced in such options. Instead, we need like a structural change that's supported by policy instruments to enable us to have this low carbon lifestyles. Without structural change, we are not going there.
And at a political level, Europe's largest greenhouse gas emitter is Germany, and Germany would have missed its 2020 climate targets hadn't it been for the pandemic. It slashed emissions basically for us. Angela Merkel wants a carbon pricing mechanism for the EU's industry and transport sectors. Is that an answer in your opinion?
Yes, definitely. Like economists consistently say that carbon pricing is one of the best options in place. And like if you have economic-wide carbon price of more than 50 euros a ton, that's a huge step forward. So we can only applaud Chancellor Merkel to go forward that. But of course, we need also supplementary policies. For example, if we want to be carbon neutral in 2050, it means that phasing out of combustion engines quite quickly, and then we need support for the German car industry and also the jobs, of course, to master a just transition.
Well, that's the biggest concern, I guess, is jobs, because if you start getting industry or all these companies trying to foot the bill, I'm sure they're going to say, well, we're going to have to lay off staff.
No, definitely. Jobs is a big issue, but the good news is that new industries related to renewables, shared mobility, etc., they also offer new job opportunities, digitalization, also high-quality jobs. So it's really about like getting into these new jobs and not despairing about the old jobs.
Also on a personal level, I can't believe the amount of discarded masks I've seen on streets. People just don't seem to get it. I mean, it's hard enough to get them to wear a mask in the first place, but they can't even throw it into a bin afterwards. How do you get the health of our planet through to people?
I'm more optimistic. I think we have all learned a lesson here that we need to act together to combat the pandemic, and actually we didn't do so bad. All of us have to respect the masks and etc. to stop or to reduce the infection rate. And this kind of a collective action exactly is also needed to save planetary health. And we have seen that this can actually be effective, so I'm more optimistic here.
Because, I mean, you do see that people are very worried, very scared about their health all of a sudden. And it's a disconnect almost, because the health of our planet, I mean, a healthy planet would mean a lot healthier lifestyles for us.
Definitely. That's the interesting thing, like eating less meat or moving more with bicycle is healthier for us and healthy for the planet. And I think we have to get our mindset into that. But of course, we need support, like without safe bicycle lanes, without like affordable vegetable foods everywhere, this won't be easy.
Yeah, it's obviously a two-way street. Felix Kreutzig from the Mercator Research Institute on Global Commons and Climate Change, thanks very much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Well, on the state of our oceans, the last time a global crisis hit the fishing industry was the Second World War. The closure of the North Sea allowed cod and haddock to thrive. There were big catches throughout the 1950s. Something similar is happening in Portugal.
For the people of Lisbon, this is nothing short of a small miracle. Dolphins have returned to the River Tagus estuary. As a biologist, Ines Clara often went dolphin watching in the Azores. Today, she works as a sailing instructor. But because of the pandemic, finding work is tough, especially because there are no tourists. But Ines and her boss say this is a silver lining. This year there are more sardines and mackerel in the ocean. That's what the dolphins like feeding on. There are massive 50-kilo stone bass as well, huge sea bass, and we've never seen this many sardines. They say the water quality of River Tagus has improved a lot due to the lockdown. That and the decline in industrial fishing has encouraged the dolphins to return. And the fact that no noisy cruise ships are harbouring in the Portuguese capital helps too, as dolphins are very sensitive to noise. Large ships are very invasive. Dolphins are disturbed by them and avoid swimming up the river. The huge vessels are not docking here right now due to the pandemic. The authorities in Lisbon are using this time to make the city more environmentally friendly. They've pledged that by 2022, docked cruise ships must stop their motors to reduce emissions. Eventually, every cruise ship docked in Lisbon will have to be connected to the electricity grid to reduce sulfur oxide emissions and cut pollution in the city. Ines hopes that the expected improvement in water quality and decline in noise pollution will keep the fish and the dolphins near the beach. That way, Lisbon could live up to its nickname of Europe's green capital long after the pandemic is over.
And what better time to ask if the global battle against the coronavirus is actually working. Let's take a little look at the most up-to-date data that's come through from over 200 countries and territories. New cases have doubled in 29 countries and increased in 70 countries in all. New case numbers stayed at the same level in 10 nations. 73 countries have seen new positive cases for COVID-19 go down. Newly reported case numbers halved in 16 countries, and 11 have reported no new cases for 4 weeks in a row. Here's the bar graph stacked up against the statistics of the last weeks. Remember, the battle is won when that entire chart is blue. There's a long way to go. And now that part of the show when Derek Williams takes over the helm. Our science correspondent has been looking into your questions on the coronavirus.
What's dangerous is the pneumonia. Why not find a cure or treatment for the pneumonia instead of the virus?
Pneumonia is a blanket term that's generally defined as a more or less serious inflammation of tissue in your air passages and or your lungs. It can be caused by a number of different pathogens, both viral and bacterial. The pneumonia that COVID-19 can cause is generally initiated by the virus and can't be treated, for example, with antibiotics, which only kill bacteria. When they're infected with SARS-CoV-2, the cells in the small sacs in your lungs where gas exchange occurs, what are called the alveoli, begin to die and clog the lungs up. And that can eventually lead to what's called acute respiratory distress syndrome. As the pneumonia progresses, the situation can be exacerbated by the immune system, causing massive inflammation, which is supposed to help get the infection under control, but which can actually make things worse. So treating or curing coronavirus pneumonia means either addressing the problem at its root, which is the SARS-CoV-2 infection itself, or somehow toning down the body's immune response to it when it goes over the top.